mythology, history, mixed, legend. This whole people take offense when there's a one section, including me, which takes an offense when you say it mythology, because you're just delegitimizing everything our culture stand for. And then there are people who are like, no, you can't call it history either, because it's mix of legend plus history plus some kivdantiyan, folk tales and stuff. So it's not actually history as well. But then there's a conflict between these two kind of people. So as a decoder, what is your thought process on that?
So, to be honest, I feel it's a mix of both. There are certainly a lot of historical data. There's a lot of historical data, right from Vedas to the Purans to the, where there are genealogies of the kings, Surya Vansh, Chandra Vansh, and, we identify some of these kings even today, in the terms of the epics. There are genealogies given about the kings from, the beginning of time right up to Kali Yuga, till the Magad dynasty became more powerful, So there is a lot of historical data. There's a lot of geographical data. There is a lot of scientific data. So, you can't say that all of this is just, somebody's imagination. It is definitely based on reality. But, how as a writer, now I know, as an author, I know that, to make the story interesting, you have to add or, sometimes exaggerate certain things, or sometimes paint a picture which is a little more interesting for the reader or the audience. And it's quite possible that some of that happened, in some of the scriptures. So, our scriptures, anyways, they are classified into the Shruti, Smriti and the Itihas.
Right.
And when the scriptures themselves are saying that Itihas covers Ramayana, Mahabharata, and, some people consider the Harivansh also a part of it, which is sort of an ancillary text to the Mahabharata. And so these are talking about historical people whom we can, still, who are closer to a timeline. But when you're talking about the Purans, as, I've mentioned in a couple of our different podcasts, that Purans, each of the Purans actually refers to a different time span. It refers to a different day of Brahma. So, Brahma has a really long life, and on each of his day there is a different Puran which is basically chronicling the events that have happened in that day. So, as if you ask a historian, is there a way to check the authenticity of those stories? You can't, because the time spans are huge, right? But I think it's more of faith, that we believe that yes, these stories happened in a previous time period in this manner. So I feel, sometimes the debate gets unnecessary, because the stories are meant, they are meant to teach us some lessons, which we forget, and we get into that controversy. No, I have to prove that this is right, that this is history, or someone else, who's on the opposite side of the spectrum, political spectrum, would say rubbish. This is all myths. This is all stories. These are flights of fancy. And both, I feel, in some way, both these stands, kind of do a disservice to the original story, because the truth is somewhere in the middle. And that's what I've observed after reading a lot of things.
Huge chunk of data has been destroyed. Like, couple of biggest libraries of ancient India were destroyed. Like, be it Nalanda, be it Takshila, like
everywhere. All the temples. Temples were the centers of learning in ancient India.
Exactly.
I mean, except for, the southern part of the country, most of the temples were destroyed, everywhere. So the knowledge, the Brahmins were killed, the priests were butchered, so some actually tried to save the deities, the stories about Kashi Vishwanath, and there's a similar story about other temples also, where the priests jumped into the wells with the deity, to save the sanctity of the gods.
Right.
So, there's the people who were passing on that knowledge were destroyed. The knowledge storehouses were destroyed. And the chain of, Guru Shishya Parampara was broken. So, which happened even later, not just the Islamic invaders, but even in the British times, the Guru Parampara chain was completely broken.
Right.
So, there's multiple factors, and yes, I mean, definitely there's a lot of knowledge which we do not understand, or we do not have access to even today, because God only knows what all was destroyed, what all was burned. I'll give you a very small example. Okay, so there's an astronomical observation that you see where the moon passes through different constellations. There are different constellations in the sky, and इनको हम हिंदी मतलब अपना ज्योतिष शास्त्र में we call them the nakshatras.
Right.
So moon spends almost one day in each nakshatra. There are 28 zodiacs. Right. And on each day, each night, you will see moon closer to a different zodiac. But it spends more than a day with one particular zodiac, which is called Rohini. So now in the Purans, the story that is woven, it says that moon was married to 28 daughters of Daksh Prajapati. Chandrama was married to 28 daughters. All these 28 are sisters. But he was especially favorable to Rohini.
Yeah.
So, there is, I feel the stories are a way to tell you some astronomical or some scientific phenomena, which you would forget otherwise. How much of science do we remember from what we have studied in school?
Right.
But most of the stories you would still remember. So now, if somebody starts to argue, no, because, the story is there. So that is why moon spends more time in constellation. Rohini, because he loves Rohini more. Somebody could argue in the other way that no, because we see astronomically moon spending more time in one constellation, that's why the story was created.
Yeah.
So I feel there is no way to prove or disprove either. So we should take a middle ground and consider the lesson from that story. What is important to learn from this story is not that moon loved Rohini, but it is the astronomical observation that moon spends more time in the constellation Rohini.
Yeah.
So that is the lesson.
That's so many things.
So I think it's very, very wrong when a lot of people just rubbish all the past, saying that it couldn't have happened.
Yeah.
No, our ancients were definitely scientific.
Yep.
But that doesn't make all the stories or all the things that we follow